Welcome everyone back for another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020, so we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate today for a cure for all those still battling PD and their families because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone I feel not just a hero but incredible in the Parkinson's community and throughout the world, and just so inspired by all he does and continues to do. I just wanted to welcome Todd to the show. It's really such an honor to have you today.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me. No problem.
Thanks.
It's
So
fun.
I'm excited because there's so much to talk about. Maybe we could start up just a little bit about your background and what brought you to Parkinson's awareness and the world of sports too.
All right. I guess the story starts well, I'll give you the full story. Let's see. So, I mean, I played sports in high school. I played a variety of sports. I played like baseball and tennis and soccer. I wasn't any necessarily very good in any. I was okay. But the only part I remember about high school sports is in playing soccer. Eventually, at the end of I just tried not to make a fool of myself during practice. But at the end of practice, we'd go for a run. That was the only time I suddenly was like the best one on the team. So maybe I should have gotten into nerd sports earlier. So I started rowing in college. I would say I quickly fell in love with the sport. Like a couple of things I liked about it initially. It was a sport that seemed there was pretty good correlation between how much work you put in and what you got out of it. And it was also a sport that I got the sense that if you were able to endure, like if you were able to, manage discomfort, deal with pain, basically, you could be pretty good at it. So that those kind of things like appeal to me pretty quickly, as well as like the team aspect of rowing. I really like being in, like you're really dependent on your teammates to row well and pull hard, and they rely on you as well. So I rowed all throughout college. I rowed after college for a few years at say like the clubs, sort of almost national level. I didn't never made like a national team or anything like that back when I was in my 20s. I continued to row after college, and that as just like a master's rower for a while, which I think is relevant for where the story goes. Meaning I had a job and a wife and a life, and I would row. I'd work out every day and go do a couple races a year. The other thing that happened, it was like that's relevant to the story, is I started coaching rowing in about 2008. I started coaching high school kids and adults and worked my way up the sort of coaching hierarchy, coaching small colleges. Eventually, I coached at some big colleges, and was running before I got diagnosed, I was running a local rowing club as like the head coach, executive director. So in fall of 17 is when I started noticing things were changing. I noticed in training for a big rowing race, I just noticed I felt bad, like fatigued. My speed on the rowing machine was getting slower. I just felt like I was rowing poorly. But at the time, I was 43. I just figured I was getting old, for lack of a better um, explanation. So I didn't think much of it. But then through the spring of 2018, I started feeling worse and worse. My left arm stopped swinging when I walked. I started developing a tremor in my left hand. That's when I started to figure out, like, that's when a point I thought something was wrong. But even at that point, I didn't think anything was seriously wrong. So went to see a bunch of doctors. After about, I don't know, probably 4 months or so, I was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's. I was 43 at the time. I was like a couple weeks before my 44th birthday. So when I first got diagnosed, I remember like three distinct thoughts. Like, what does this mean for my relationship with my wife? Like, how am I, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage my job as a rowing coach? Like, which thing about being a rowing coach, I really liked it. It was fun to like share my knowledge and enthusiasm of the sport with others, but it's fairly physically demanding. You're out in like a little metal motorboat bouncing along in the river, a lot of times in bad conditions, and you're carrying gas cans and oars and things like that. Like I didn't know if I could even physically manage being a rowing coach anymore. And then
Mhm.
the last thing I thought too is like, well, there goes, I don't see how I can still be a competitive rower given how I was feeling. So, which was a bummer because like a lot of my identity was wrapped up in being, a competitive rower. So luckily for me, being like so immersed in the rowing world, I knew about the Paralympics, and I knew about that rowing had was competed at the Paralympics too. So after maybe like 2 months after diagnosis, I decided like, what does it take to get classified or designated as a Paralympic athlete? So I looked it up and I realized based off my symptoms, I could probably be classified and get into sort of the Paralympic system, just thinking, oh, this gives me an opportunity to potentially race again and row. The next thing I found, and being sort of a rowing geek, is I found a lot of the speeds on the rowing machine of a lot of international Paralympic rowers, like the British and French guys, Italian guys, German guys, the American guys. What I found was that their speed on the rowing machine is pretty similar to where I was about a year before getting diagnosed. So I remember thinking to myself, man, maybe I can get classified, and man, maybe I can compete with these guys at the sort of, Paralympic national team level. So I reached out to US Rowing, to Ellen Misner, who's the high performance director for the US Paralympic rowing team, just sort of introduced myself. And she asked to see some rowing machine workouts and some video of me rowing. And with that, she invited me to what's called the selection camp to select the rowers that would compete on the US Paralympic national team at the 2019 World Championship. So I made it into a boat, which was cool. Like I made it onto the national team. Like I fulfilled like one of my rowing sort of dreams at that point. We went to the World Championships in 2019, and it was great. We had a fun summer training. We finished in sixth, which is all, there was only 6 entries. So finishing in sixth is like a nice way to say we finished in dead last. So, which was, that actually motivated me to go home and train even harder and like be much more serious and dedicated to my training. So with the thought process, maybe I can make it onto the Tokyo Paralympic team in 2020. COVID came along, which in some regards helped me a little bit, in that it gave me an extra year to really just do nothing but train. So I got a lot fitter and faster. I got invited to the camp to select the people who would go to Tokyo. I didn't actually make the boat to Tokyo. I was named as the alternate. So technically I made the team. The joke I like to make about it, but I didn't go, I didn't travel, I didn't get gear. The joke I like to say about that is that I made the Paralympic team, but all I got was a t-shirt. So I remember I watched my teammates race. Like they won a silver medal, which is cool. I was happy for them. At the same time, I was a little bummed I wasn't there. I actually thought about retiring after Tokyo, because I just kept figuring like, well, I'm always almost making the boat, but I'm always losing to guys who are, half my age and fitter than me and who row better. So luckily, after the Tokyo Paralympics, the International Paralympic Committee added another event. They added this a mixed gendered 2-person double. So 1 man, 1 woman, 2 oars each, like you can see on my website. So, I was always like sort of the third guy on the hierarchy. So suddenly they added a 3rd seat for men. So I was like, oh, this could be a great opportunity. So I buckled down with training, made it into the double for that summer of 2022, went off to the Czech Republic to race. This time we finished in 5th. There were 6 entries once again. So at least we weren't dead last this time. So came back home to Portland. Finishing 5th that year actually was, I don't want to say a blessing, but it was like, it motivated me, I guess you would say. Like we were supposed to take a couple weeks off after training after the World Championships. I came home, got over the jet lag, and immediately started training hard. Like I was on a mission to get into a good boat that summer, at the next summer of 2023. So I trained like really hard. Like everything really came together. That I like had a new coach, new training program. Like everything came together. I had new training partner. Like everything came together. I got invited to the selection camp for 2023. Got hooked up with a really good partner. We went to the World Championships in Belgrade, and we finished in 2nd, which was huge. Like to win a medal at the World Championships, like blew my mind. So it also got me thinking that like maybe I really can pull this off and get into this boat for Paris. So I went back home. The selection camp for Paris was back in January. So I figured, okay, I got 4 more months after the World Championships to train really hard, go down to camp in Florida, in Sarasota, over at the, kind of near you, not too far away from you.
Right.
Here, get invited to the camp and get it done and try to get into a boat. So I did go down to Sarasota to the selection camp in January, and they invited 6 guys for 3 seats. So ultimately, when it was all said and done, I did get into the double and, earned a spot to go to Paris. Went back home, trained really hard, like the hardest I've ever trained that spring. Like, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, we would typically train at either 2 to 3 times a day. We would row in the mornings for 60 to 90 minutes. We would lift weights a lot of times in the middle of the day. Then at night we would do more cardio, whether it was on the water in a boat or on the rowing machine or on a bike. So typically train, like our typical training week was like 20 to 25 hours a week. So, we took Sundays off, Monday to Saturday. So it ended up being like 3 to 4 hours a day of training. So a lot of times I would just try to make it through the week, get to Saturday afternoon, and I would say to myself, okay, I survived another week intact, So, but I really felt good about going into Paris. I felt as though I did nearly everything possible to be at my best come Paris. So yeah, we went to Paris. It was awesome experience. Like representing your country at the national level or at the international level is amazing. So Paris and then being at the Paralympics was a whole nother level compared to the World Championship. So like the opening ceremony, we walked down the Champs-Elysees into the stadium. There was 40,000 people in the stadium cheering for each of the teams. And like the US team everybody loves the US team. You know, everybody, yeah. So it's pretty amazing, like walking into the stadium and seeing like 40,000 people going bonkers for you. That gave me chills, So and the racing was like really intense. Like I said, I felt like I couldn't have raced any harder and prepared any more. We would have liked to have done better than seventh place, but it's hard to complain. The whole experience was amazing. Closing
Yeah,
ceremony was really cool. Was that? Sorry, George.
yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing. It's an honor to again have you here because most only experience it through hearing secondary, so hearing it right from you is amazing. I usually start the show too, and this is a little bit of a quote, but from Theodore Roosevelt, believe you can and you're halfway there. And I think you're already totally there because you're doing and accomplishing so much amazing things in sports and in your life, even through the fight of the diagnosis of Parkinson's. I do want to ask everyone to go to toddvogt.rowing.com and we'll add it to the notes, and you can do what I did. It took 1 second. You can subscribe, you can support Todd, and you can follow him and
Yeah.
in the journey. And also his website, I think, is beautiful. I've been kind of showing a little bit as you've been telling your journey, and some of these pictures are such, the history. And then we need to continue
Yeah.
to share them because I think, again, not only are you a role model, but also a hero to so many throughout the Parkinson's community, but also the world. So I wanted to also thank you for that.
Thanks. It's been an interesting journey regarding what you were just saying. So I think at first, like I understand that my story is inspirational and I get that and I'm proud of that. But at some level, at the beginning of this whole process, it was like, sometimes I feel as though this journey has been very selfish. You know what I mean? Because I feel, a lot of it is like, can I make the team? Can I can I get faster on the rowing machine? So yeah,
I
I
think
understand it inspires a lot of people. That actually kind of became more my focus this year, especially. I was thinking that was in my thought a lot when training, that lots of people will be watching me race, lots of people will be following me. Because at the beginning of this process, it was just me doing my own thing, so to speak, at some level. So
Yeah, I've
yeah.
also done so much research. Think you were mentioning how do you pronounce it, Gemma, and
Oh yeah, Gemma.
the
Gemma
work.
is great. I scored with the partner with Gemma. In my opinion, she's the fastest Paralympic rower in the world. So maybe there's an argument whether this British woman's faster than her. I don't know, but yeah, I scored in the partner lottery with Gemma. So yeah,
And how many individuals had Parkinson's that you're aware of in the actual training and through the whole competition?
that's a good question. I did a little research. I don't know if this is accurate, but I've looked up this several times. Like, as far as I can tell, I'm only the second person to ever compete at the Paralympics while having Parkinson's. I'm sure there have been athletes who competed at the Olympics and the Olympics and or the Paralympics, and then much later in life were diagnosed with Parkinson's. But as far as I can tell, there's only been one other athlete. There's a British guy who competed on the British soccer team in 2012 who was diagnosed with Parkinson's previous to that. So at the Paralympics this year, I'm sure I was the only person with Parkinson's this year in Paris.
Yeah.
So
Some of these pictures also, whoever did them are beautiful. So thank you everyone out there for capturing Todd's journey. Beautiful. And this is the U.S. rowing. If you also, I saw you also work with many incredible foundations. So this was
yeah.
your journey. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, your future goals now and also, how individuals out there can also support you.
So I'm back home now. This fall, since coming back, I spent a good month or two almost after getting home training fairly seriously for this race in October in Boston called the Head of the Charles. So I spent a little bit of time training after the games, which is fun. That race is great. It's one of my favorite races. It's like the third weekend in October in Boston. So it's like the weather is good and you get point is I trained pretty hard for that in late October. Since then, I've been working out and rowing. I don't know. Mostly I've been looking for a job. I don't know exactly what's going to where my rowing will go. Whether I'm going to officially retire from international rowing. I mean, I'll still row and to stay fit and do some competitions, but um, I've been looking for a real job that to help to make it easy for my wife. Like my wife has been a huge supporter of me. Like first of all, she has the real job that pays the mortgage and pays the bills and things like that. Like I was getting a stipend from US Rowing and health insurance through US Rowing, which I appreciated, but it wouldn't have been enough to live on, especially this last year, because this last year, from 23 to 24, I was really just focused primarily on our training. And given our training plan was pretty aggressive, as I mentioned. So before that, in like 22, I was doing, all sorts of, odd jobs as well as rowing. I was like driving for DoorDash and walking dogs. So a point is like, also I'm gone a lot of times in the summer. So it's like a strain on my wife. So now I'm back home trying to, trying to find a real job to help, take some of the strain off of her. I'm still rowing, and whether I try to row, make the team again, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I've been still working. Obviously I'm going to still row because I love being on the water and I like racing, and it really does help me physically too. I think rowing is like particularly good for Parkinson's because, especially for me on the water, because you use each of your limbs independently. There's a lot of and it requires a lot of endurance, cardiovascular endurance. So and it requires a lot of balance as well. So it really helps me physically. So I'll always row. So whether I row on the national team or not, I don't really know anymore. I don't know. I'm kind of seeing like how my job search goes for the next couple weeks here.
Yeah,
Anyways, so
there's always
that's
one
that
more.
right now.
I've had, unfortunately, as many viewers know, several back surgeries. I always wondered if I should get the rowing machine because I always wanted it, but then I'm wondering if it would build the strength of the back for caregivers also, or
Yeah.
would it be even worse? So that's maybe, I don't know if you could touch on it, but
I
this is
don't
more.
know. That's a really good question, actually, because I think you hit on the key thing. Rowing in general, I think is probably good for strengthening your back. However, having said that, probably the most common injury that most rowers get is low back injury. I had luckily I've been really healthy the last couple of years, but maybe whatever that was 15 years ago, I did have a bulging disc, which is kind of the common injury with a lot of rowers because that's your low back is sort of the fulcrum point is where you're producing the power with your legs and trying to transmit it out to your hands. So your low back takes a lot of the load. So I think it could be good or it could be terrible, I guess is a simple answer. It could be
I,
good for strengthening or it could be just make it way worse. So I don't know. It could be good or it could be terrible for lack
I
of.
love, yeah, I love what you do in your sport professional because it brings attention to rowing. Because a lot of time, I don't see a lot for rowing in the world of
Yeah.
Parkinson's, and that's why a lot of my work, which is, I just do this 24/7 because I really want people to never feel alone and also to know there are ways to slow the progression and to never have to go through this disease. But I don't see a lot on the topic and sport of rowing, and that's why I love again what you do because you're really bringing national attention to something that can help others and just incredible, inspiring story. And wanted to thanks for all that you do and continue to do. And as you know, I'll be fighting right by your side for the next steps and even the future. Maybe we could shift a little bit about you. Can you list 3 words that describe who you are?
Let's see. 3 words describe who I am. I would say um I'm like enthusiastic, um, determined, and maybe a goofball. I don't know.
I love this.
I try not to take myself too seriously, because I have a tendency to like get real focused and obsessed on things. So at the same time, to try to like, take life a little less seriously, I try to be a goofball.
I like that. And then you mentioned something very important, but is there one moment or most memorable moment that stands out through most of your work with awareness that you can share? It's probably the Olympics, but you never know.
I'm thinking, yeah, I would have,
Like maybe, I don't know if you've ever had someone reach out that has just been diagnosed and maybe an athlete and they just wanted to talk to you
oh
and
yeah, that's happened several times actually. I met a guy this fall at the head of the Charles at this race in Boston who is similar. There's been like at least 2 athletes who were rowers who had similar situations. They were competitive rowers for a long time, and then they got diagnosed. And then yeah, I met like a guy named Chris Donnelly and a guy named Mike Smith. They both are in similar situations. So it was like I met Mike this fall in October, and it was really nice. Like he mentioned how like I inspired him and inspired him to keep competing and racing because I think he had the same thought process as I did when he got first diagnosed. Is like, well, I don't, he I think he felt that that was the end of his competitive rowing life. So I think seeing and talking to him, it sort of inspired him to keep going and still competing and rowing.
Yeah, that's why I love the show because there are so many individuals out there, but we just might not know of them. And I always say the only journey today that breaks my heart is the journey I'm not aware of. So by you speaking out and stepping up and, not being private about all this incredible advocacy you do and the actual training and all the competition, it really helps, I think, someone out there, even if we reach one person that might feel alone and now sees this, it'll change their life for the better. So again, grateful for that and all you do. You mentioned earlier your family. I always try to highlight for a moment the individuals behind the scenes in your life because I know that it's so important for them to also kind of be thanked. So we're sending a virtual hug to the family and to all those you train with and everyone in the in your training and your life. But who helps you during times of struggle? Because I know that it's not always easy to be the face of rowing really for our community. And, wanted to kind of thank those individuals behind the scenes for you.
Yeah, I mean, clearly my wife has been super supportive. She put up with all the madness of me, like I said, being gone from the home for 2 months, 2 or 3 months a year, and when I am home, being hungry and tired all the time. I guess you would say I'm busy, so she put up with my madness for sure, and been very helpful. And my sister as well is probably my other main supporter. She's been super helpful. Actually, she works with a design company, coincidentally, and her company. The designer there is the guy who did my website. So like it's
Oh,
way nicer than I would have been able to put together. So
me too. That's beautiful. But we send our love and thanks to your sister, your wife, and the website designer and everybody else who helps support you. Because as you know, I don't think any of us could get through some of this tougher times without that support. So thank you
sure.
for me too. Uh,
Yeah.
there's something you might have done differently looking back the past 10 years. I think you might have mentioned that you wish you had tried earlier for some of these areas, but maybe you could touch on that.
Yeah. I do look back at when I was younger and that maybe I should have like tried to take a shot at the Olympic team when I was, in my 20s and able-bodied and like maybe tried to figure out how to survive somehow and train full time. I think I was just like scared or of what of taking that leap, so to speak. Yeah. So
Thank you.
that's something I look back and say, I don't know. I think the other thing I like too is I really enjoyed coaching and that I should have probably started doing that earlier. I probably should have started doing that right after finishing college and graduate school. I think that would have been a better career choice, so as opposed to sort of puttering around for a few years until I decided like, okay, I really want to do this. So that's the other thing I think back. Maybe I should have started coaching earlier and
I
who knows
appreciate
where it would have taken me. So
And who is your hero and inspiration?
let's see. I don't know. Off the top, I mean, there's a couple people within the rowing world. There's this guy named Brad Lewis. Who inspires me. He's like he was in the '84 Olympics. Like he wrote a book about his experiences. He was sort of an outsider who had spent like years toiling away and eventually made the Olympic team back in '84 and won a gold medal at the '84 Olympics. So the cool thing about Brad too, I've read his book like 100 times. I can quote it word for word. I'm sure. And a lot of guys like who are rowers my age sort of know this book. It's like very popular within the rowing world. But I actually never met Brad. But my coach this summer, Andrea, knows Brad, whatever, through the rowing world pretty well. So she put me in touch with Brad. So this summer I actually got to like exchange some emails. We had a phone conversation, which kind of like blew my mind. So, anyways,
No,
that's one. I think there's a lot of other people too. Like Michael J. Fox, I feel is obviously he's done a huge amount for the Parkinson's community, but I like his attitude as well. Whenever I hear him talk, like in his documentary, or he has like a pretty good attitude.
I appreciate it. And next area is, not everyone can keep battling and fighting like you do. And that's why, again, I believe you're an incredible role model. But what drives and motivates you to keep fighting and keep pushing forward?
Well, okay, that's a good question. So when I look back on this like Paralympic journey, sometimes like the things that I'm proud of is like sometimes I call it like obstacle, like I made a talk. I gave a talk to a group and I called it like obstacles, not opportunities, not obstacles, right? Because I think there's like a lot of key moments along this pathway from getting diagnosed to getting to Paris, and which could have gone differently. So it makes me a little emotional sometimes. You can see, but yeah, there's like things where I could have said, okay, this is too hard. This is never going to happen, But I'm happy that I like pushed through and worked hard and made things happen. Well, a slight tangent here. A lot of times within the Paralympic world, especially in the rowing world, I'm sure this happens in other sports. A lot of times Paralympic athletes are recruited rather than are found, so to speak. What I mean by that is like my teammates, a lot of them were on high school or college teams with their able-bodied teammates, and they never knew about the Paralympics. And then either one of their coaches would say, "Hey, there's this thing, the Paralympics. You might be able to make it onto the Paralympic team." That's the really typical way that most people get into the system, into the Paralympic system. My story is completely different. Like nobody came looking for me. Like I said, I did the research to find out about the classification. I did the research to find out the speed of rowers. And I realized like maybe this is possible. I reached out to Ellen Misner, the high performance director of para rowing, and she was enthusiastic, but nobody was like looking.
Right.
A 43 or 44-year-old man with Parkinson's is not what the Paralympic coaches are looking for. Like I had to get myself to Boston. Then when I got there, I had to like show that I had enough speed to actually be competitive. Then from there, I had to show, go home and work even harder to show them actually even potentially could get better. So, the coach, like I said, the coaches didn't dissuade me and they encouraged me once I showed up. But I had to make each of those steps happen. Nobody was like recruiting me to be on the team. Like I had to show up, then earn a seat in the boat, then go home and work even harder so I could potentially get invited to the next camp. Then maybe if I get to the next camp, I can maybe get a seat in the boat and go to World Championships, and maybe if I work a little harder, like even do better at the World Championships. That's the kind of what motivated me. It was like I often kind of viewed it like climbing a mountain. Each step along the way was like getting me closer each step got me higher and got steeper and harder, but it got me one close step closer to the top. Like first step, get invited to camp. Second step, try to make it into a boat. Third step, maybe make it into the top into the medals podium at Worlds. Like, and each step required more work to get there. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm kind of rambling, but that's like the thing I look back on that I feel good about is that I made these things happen through my like willpower and determination.
It means a lot, and the emotion's honest and also important for everyone out there in the community. During the holidays, it's tough for me because obviously my mother's no longer here, but living through you and, fighting by your side means the world to me, and I'm grateful every day for the opportunity to call you friend too. So thank you
Thanks,
again
man.
for sharing that. Here's the one to cheer you up a little, and you might have been asked already, but if you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it, and who would play you in the movie?
What
Gotta get you
would I
smile.
call it? Well, I think I would call it like two ideas that I've had for names of things. One of them I just said before is like opportunities, not obstacles. I kind of like that idea. The other idea I had for one of the talks I gave was like good, not great, because that's how I kind of define my rowing a lot of times. Like I was a good athlete in high school, but not great. Then in college, I was like a good college rower, but not great. And then after college, I was like a good club rower, national rower, but not great. Then I feel like that way sometimes when I'm on the Paralympic team. And that's kind of like helped, like motivated me. Like, that's kind of like helped push me as well. It's like give me a little bit of chip on my shoulder. So
Well, I think
who
you're
would
great.
play me? I don't know. Let's see. That's a really good question. I don't know. Um, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. Ryan Gosling. I don't know.
Nice. I've got some good one. Last show is someone said Leonardo DiCaprio. So I'm like,
Nice.
the actors are getting better looking every show. So, but I appreciate that. And then just want to remind everyone, please again, support Todd and go to Todd, VOGT rowing.com. I know after this, I feel like going rowing myself, but I'm a mess. So I won't be, maybe someday we'll row together, although you probably throw me off the boat because I can't keep up with you. But I just wanted to again,
Yeah,
thank
you
you
can
for
roll.
all you do. And I had one last final question, but I always say in the show, hope this conversation can continue. It's not really just about meeting one show or one time. I really feel we have to be a family in this fight. We have to please everyone listening, share this, please support Todd and all he does and his beautiful family and all the individuals behind the scenes. But if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Uh, okay, here's one, maybe one or two things. Like one thing, with Parkinson's, I think about it, it forces you, I've said this before, so I don't, maybe I'm being redundant, but it's a progressive disease. So I think sometimes it forces me to live in the present moment and try to like take advantage or live my life as best I can now, knowing that things are, more than likely going to get worse and a lot worse physically for me. So try to take advantage of and live my life the best I can now.
I appreciate that. And those are incredible words and words that I believe everybody out there listening will support and also join in with you. I did have a little message for you and everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Todd, will advocate for you. And I feel together our voices are so much stronger. I always end with them just getting started because there's days where, we all have tougher times and moments, but I see your story, your journey and inspiration. And no matter if I'm having 4 surgeries in my back or whatever's going on in my life, I always kind of just jump right back up and want to keep fighting for a cure for Parkinson's for you and for everyone else out there. And you do inspire me. And I think, believe you're a hero to so many. So, so grateful for your time, friendship. And I hope we have a lot of more incredible advocacy together in the future.
Thank you, George. Thanks for having me on and letting me ramble on about these random rowing stories.
No, I don't think rambling's the word. I think it's just magic and beautiful. Even the website. I know we keep plugging your website, but I have to say I like mine. But that just seeing you rowing out there is just amazing, and I want to go do it too. But I'll probably get eaten by an alligator back here in Florida. I don't think Sarasota might not have them, but South Florida has too many of the alligators running. But again, I really just want to thank you for your time and all you do. And I want to thank to everybody listening. We send our love, support right back at you. And this has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Please stay tuned. There's so much more to come. And until the cure is at all our doorsteps around the world, I won't fight along with Todd to find a cure for Parkinson. So thank you all. Thank you, Todd. Thanks everyone in the family and everyone out there. We love you, and we just want you to keep smiling, keep pushing, and don't never give up because Todd and I won't. So thank you all.
Thank you, George. Thanks
Thanks.
for having me on.